Anyway, my name is Gabriele Ferri. When I'm abroad, this is usually where I make a joke about my first name. That is usually taken as a female name practically everywhere except in Italy, and that leads to all sorts of interesting miscommunications, but I don't need to do it here. I am currently working at the Amsterdam University of Applied Science, where I do way too many things, including being a researcher, coordinating a master program called Master in Digital Design, and I will tell you a bit more about that at the end when I do a little bit of a promo. Among other things, I make games for cities. So my point is that we spend way too much time in front of a screen. Screens are going to be dead anyhow in 10 years or so. That's my bet. Or it's going to be very, very different in 10 years. We might as well get the heck out of our living room and begin playing on a sidewalk or playing on a submarine or wherever, in whatever public space we can find. And so the reason why I talk about this, and the reason why I'm passionate about this, is that I really believe that playing in public can tease out some particular components of being playful. Because it's one thing to play on your couch or to play on your desk or to play on your phone while you wait for a plane at the airport, and it's another thing to play on a sidewalk. Because in the moment in which you are in public and you are performing in public for somebody that might be a random passerby, the quality of being playful becomes immediately quite different. What I'd like to talk about today is some extracts of a list of design principles that I find interesting. Also, the caveat is that these are 3 design principles that I like. This is not a list that is exhaustive in any way, by no means. These are just 3 things that I find generative for further work, and I'd like to usually go through them in class. And so what follows in the next half an hour, 40 minutes or so, is a totally idiosyncratic list of examples that I find interesting, some of which are from designers that I love, some of which are from designers that I completely don't know in person, but I still find the game absolutely fascinating. Some other examples are either mine and also of some other people that happen to be present in this room. So this is idiosyncratic, but I find it interesting. So I'm going to talk about urban playfulness, artificial agents, and defamiliarization. So the idea is that urban playfulness is what happens when we enter a playful state of mind in public. That, as I said, I believe is something that is fundamentally different from being playful in private. The idea is that urban playfulness fosters pervasive interaction in public spaces. Pervasive interaction meaning sometimes when I'm playing, especially when I'm playing in public, for example, an urban game or a LARP or a sort of treasure hunt, there is no downtime. So interaction with the game becomes pervasive in as much it's difficult to pause. Actually, in many cases, it's not actually feasible to pause the game. Another point of this design principle that I find inspiring is that things that we end up interacting with in our everyday life might become suddenly magic, might take a different kind of function. For example, we will see examples of completely mundane objects becoming play elements. And also the idea that play is something that might happen anytime, anywhere with every possible interactor. Of course, when we talk about playing anywhere, anytime, the absolutely obligatory first example and first famous case that I really want to touch upon is Hello Lamppost. How many people in the room know this performance that started in Bristol a few years ago called Hello Lamppost? No. Okay. Quick recap. Hello Lamppost is, I say is because it's still going on in various locations around the world, is a pervasive, playful game that runs on a big database that is connected to a SMS gateway, like the one that you use to send messages on. I think that recently it's been adapted to work with WhatsApp, but essentially it's something that you use on your phone. And it associates specific numeric codes with really mundane furniture from around the city. In this case, you can send a text message to a mailbox, or you can send a text message to a beamer or a chair or whatever else you find in the public space. The idea is that by sending a text message to an inanimate object, you begin to gossip with the thing. Because the thing in the reality of the game actually has a memory and remembers what other people told it. So, for example, you can say hello to that mailbox in Bristol, and the mailbox might reply with a text message or with a WhatsApp that somebody else a few minutes before told it that so and so. Of course, this is not particularly fun if played in isolation. When promoted correctly, it becomes really, really cute, because imagine as if a herd of different things from the city begin to gossip with you about other people or about other inanimate objects. It's a game. I'm not really sure it is a game. It is playful. Heck yeah, it's definitely playful. I tried that in Bristol. I've seen kids having tons of fun with that. I've seen there are statistics about the number of text messages that have been exchanged. It's pretty high. And indeed, it's something that forces you to look at your city with a different eye. This is actually something that takes a similar principle without the dialogue, but still it's something that takes the idea of being somewhat silly or somewhat playful in public spaces from a different angle. This is a small device called Asphyxia. It's been made by actually a team of students of mine last year in Amsterdam. It's supposed to be a tangible visualization device for air pollution. So nothing playful here, but play is going to enter in a second. Imagine that the municipality of Amsterdam has a gazillion of air quality sensors scattered across the city. And the challenge that the students of mine received is, can we make it poetic? And can we make it understandable without using any LCD, without using any screen, and making that universally accessible? So after like a semester of work, they came up with this metaphor of this sort of jellyfish or lung or you name it that breathes with different patterns and with different rhythm, each of which is connected to a value in the air quality. So what we did actually in the beginning of this academic year, we got a new bunch of students coming in, and for the intro week, which happened 3 weeks ago, we brought them in a countryside house for a few days just to get to know each other, and I gave them the following challenge. Can we take the Asphyxia device, so this thing, can we make it big, can we build it 4 or 5 meters tall, and can we turn that into something that is playful? And this is what came out of that. And keep in mind, this is something that was made in really no more than a couple of days. They had this giant lung, and they filmed themselves breathing, and it's not working. Yes, it's working. What you don't see is that behind the screen there is a giant kind of hamster wheel that moves the thing up and down, and ideally, they were trying to, or the concept was to challenge passers-by to move the device in sync with the rhythm that was given due by a metronome, and the metronome would respond to the readings of the local air quality sensor. So it was some sort of play and make it embodied the reading of the sensor. How do I stop it? Okay. Have you seen this one? Shadowing, also from Bristol. This, I wish I was the author. Unfortunately, I'm not. This, I think, is something that would give me a heart attack in 2 seconds. What could be, how would it feel if your shadow would do that? How cool is that? How cool is that? Oh, this is not CGI. Yeah, this is actually happening for real on a sidewalk. It's actually a really smartly crafted combination of a beamer, strategically like a beamer like that, strategically placed on a vantage position, and a bunch of sensors. So what the system does is capture and record with an infrared camera similar to a Kinect, the shape of people actually entering that active zone. As a matter of fact, it sort of captures the shadow, even though the system does not really see the shadow. It sees the silhouette of the person going there. And what it does is reproducing the shadow with a delay, with a time delay. So you pass there, your shadow is captured, and then with a time delay that goes from 20, with a time delay that goes from a few seconds to a couple of hours, your shadow reappears at random, or somebody else's shadow appears at random. Now, a completely emergent effect of this kind of installation is that also keep in mind, that device was not advertised in any way, okay? So the idea, and it was put in, that the author promised that this was not staged. I have no way of verifying that for real, but they say that especially the interaction that we saw on the corner was not really staged. Apparently, there was this word of mouth effect with which people would gather around this installation to just mess with that, or to dance, to organize a little bit of a dance party, and play with that. Now, stop it. Okay. Last example from this interaction principle is the Medea story generator. Perhaps you don't know, but in the island of Medea, in the middle of freaking nowhere in the ocean, there is actually a pretty cool design department of the local university. I have a bunch of friends there. What at some point they did is by having a good contact at the local airport, which, by the way, is the Cristiano Ronaldo airport, they got their hands on actually one of those, I don't even know how to say that in English, but the public display that displays the departures and the arrivals of the airport. And so they thought that would be a really kind of poetic output device, as opposed to the mundane LCD or mundane other type of displays and devices that we might end up playing with. So this is actually, so they got the old display, they moved that somewhere else, and they hooked it up with a natural language processor, so that it was a system that in part was reading some tweets that it received from people, and in part was remixing and reinterpreting them to generate micro stories that were about travel. So that's the connection with the departure display, with micro stories to be displayed on that. So that display has lived in the main hall of the design department of the University of Madeira for a few months, and then it was put back in the airport. Unfortunately, I don't have the picture of the display back in the airport, but they promised me that it went back with the kind of interesting effect of putting side by side the real display with, plane to Amsterdam starts, takes off in 1 hour and is another hour late, with something that tells me a micro story about traveling and about the island and about the experience of being, again, in the middle of nowhere in the ocean. Okay, so I don't want to make this too long or too messy, but what I really like to call urban playfulness, and also, by the way, parenthesis, I'm not completely satisfied with the adjective urban. Could also be in the middle of nowhere in the woods. Could be pervasive playfulness. But what I like about this concept is the sense of wonder that it produces. Is the sense of wonder is the yes, I got it. Is the sense of wonder that you get when you see your shadow doing something really unexpected, and for example beginning to dance when you pass through the corner, or is the sense of wonder of seeing a strange device on the sidewalk and being asked to do something unexpected. Another thing that I really, really like, and I think it kind of goes hand in hand with what we were saying before, is that sometimes it's really, really cool to play with things that are not humans. And in this case, I'm not referring to your dog, although, by the way, I don't know if you know about that, but there is a really kind of emerging field in design called animal-computer interaction. I'm not an expert in that, and I will not talk about it today, but by the way, there are conferences and there are books on being playful with non-human entities. So in case some of the people present here would like to begin thinking about how to engage non-humans, e.g. dogs, cats, birds, whatever, it could be, I have a hunch that it could be one of the next big things. A good friend of mine in Amsterdam designs games for elephants, and I kid you not. And the moment of play testing is one of the cutest things ever. Anyhow, in this case, I'm not talking about elephants, I'm talking about robots, which is cute in a different way. I really think that we are going to in a direction where human entities are not going to be the only players. Of course, we've been playing against machines since we had computers, but now things that we play against or we play with tend to have better bodies, tend to have a physicality that is a bit more elaborated. And of course, this allows us to experiment with different kinds of agencies. Agency meaning the thing, the stuff that your antagonist or your co-player can do. And I mean, leaving aside all sort of philosophy and all sort of design geekiness, it's also pretty cool to see your players react to stuff that they were not expecting, also in terms of who the heck am I playing with? Okay, what is this thing? What is this agent that is asking to play? This seems quite abstract. Let's make it concrete. How many people here know the Hitchbot? That is, okay, one? Okay, two, one in the back. This was unfortunately, I'm using the past tense, this was Hitchbot. It was extremely Canadian and extremely polite and good-willed robot that set out with the objective of traversing Canada from east to west, hitchhiking alone, without human intervention, and most interestingly, without any form of self-initiated motion. The Hitchbot seems complicated, but is actually, and I had the chance of actually having a chat with these creators, the Hitchbot is literally a trash bin. It's where they took a plastic trash bin, they stuck a pretty big battery in that. It has a clear plastic head with a bunch of dot matrix displays. It has a bunch of solar panels. Of course, it can be recharged. But most importantly, it has a Twitter account. Okay, you don't need legs when you can tweet. So Hitchbot was actually moving east to west in Canada by being on the side of the road, flashing on its display that it wanted to go west, tweeting desperately that it needed a ride. It couldn't do this because it didn't have hands, but it was very active on social media. Now, interestingly, for the sort of kindness of the masses and kindness of the Canadians, Hitchbot got quite a lot of rides. Hitchbot has been invited to, there are stats on the website. I think it's been invited to 2 birthday parties. It's been invited to a bunch of celebrations. It's been brought out for drinks. It had a pretty how do I say, pretty intense social life. I think it has been made a honorary member of one of the so-called one of the First Nations, which is a way in which the Native Americans in Canada address themselves. So, bottom line, this is something that indeed was successful in its goal to travel west to a coast-to-coast in Canada by the sheer power of social media and by the sheer power of being cute. Of course, it was asking, it had, if you look at the technicalities of that, it had a number of chatbot-like functions. It was asking to be recharged when needed, like the Hello Lamppost project. It liked to gossip a lot, so it could tell stories about where it was before. And so, if you just gave a ride to the Hitchbot, you could have been rewarded with good stories, like every other hitchhikers. You could tell him or her a story, both in person and by tweeting to it, and then you could tweet where you were living, the Hitchbot, and what happened several times was that other people would show up and get the Hitchbot from you to move it west. I'm pretty much certain that this version 1 also had a GPS tracker, so its creator could actually follow where Hitchbot was. On a more sad note, I think 1 year later, the same creators tried the same experiment in the US, and Hitchbot was found decapitated in a ditch near Detroit, which might be telling. Anyhow, is it a game? No, I don't think it is a game. Is it playful? Heck yes. Does it touches upon how do we live and experience public spaces? Oh yes. I don't know what is the moral of this story, but I think this is something that is nice to keep in mind, and that could be the beginning of other playful experiments. This is the ugliest robot in the world. So I thought I would put side by side the cutest robot and the ugliest robot. Unfortunately, I am guilty of creating this. Well, not the external side. I'm guilty of initiating this this project. This is a project that was called Cognoscenti in Latin. At the time, I was working in the US, and having a Latin name was kind of a way of being a fancy European. And this is a chatbot from another dimension. It is part of a research to design, let's say some sort of kind of weird experiment that, for reasons that are way too long to explain now, my then supervisors managed to persuade Intel Corporation to give us a bunch of money to do crazy stuff. Interestingly, a few months after we created that, Intel stopped paying us, so maybe I am guilty of that. Anyhow, the idea was, can we put something that is absolutely difficult to recognize as anything? Can we make it somewhat disgusting? And can we put it in a public space, in that case, a library in the middle of nowhere in the American Midwest in Indiana, where I strongly discourage any of the present to live. I did it for a few years, and it was an experience. And how do we document the interaction between passersby and the robot? So the robot pretended to be an explorer from a different dimension, sent to our planet to understand how do we learn, and what is true and what is false. You know, the really big, freaking big philosophical concepts of what is fact and what is fiction. And was asking people in the library to go fetch books to explain to him what is true and what is false. The robot had a microphone, it had an LCD screen, and most importantly, we had an undergrad student hidden in a basement being the robot. I also took a couple of turns in the basement being the robot. Anyhow, what was interesting was the level of engagement that we got from the people. The guy on the top left, to this day, I am not really sure he understood this was a game. I'm pretty much certain that the guy on the top left was fairly convinced to be speaking with an explorer from a different dimension. There was another, and I had to chase him to make him sign a consent and release form, because of course I wanted to study what he said. He signed it, so I'm in the clear to tell this story. But to this day, I can say he was not convinced that this was an experiment. I'm pretty much certain he was believing in aliens. Also, somebody took a selfie with my ugly robot, which made my day. Also, as you can see, there were people bringing books to the table. They were showing him stuff. One kid sat with the robot for, I don't know, 1 hour reading stories to the robot. So it was really kind of telling him a bedtime story, or and this was really cute because. In addition to, you know, the fun factor of creating something completely unexpected in a sleepy library in the middle of nowhere, was the fact that as a researcher, if I put my researcher hat on for a little bit, this is also a way to see how people conceptualize a library, and how people conceptualize something that is inherently abstract as knowledge or truth or falsehood. By virtue of creating something absolutely bloody disgusting, putting that on a table and say, hey, this is a game, and this is what it took to get this dynamic started. We had people that wanted to buy the robot and bring it home. It was not for sale. Okay, let's jump back to the cute angle. I do have a thing for cute robots. These are the Introbots. This is a project that a class of mine did 2 years ago, actually. And I count this as the most elaborate form of student feedback that as a teacher, as a lecturer, I've ever received in my career. Because when I mean, you see me a little bit, I'm one of those, and I'm keeping it down now, but usually when I'm in class, I'm one of those teachers that jumps up and down and want everybody to speak, and okay, what do you think, and what do you think, and you down there, tell me what you think. I really want to hear from everybody. And this really brilliant student of mine 2 years ago took me aside at one point and said, Gabriele, look, I really need to tell you this. I know you're not an asshole, but you probably are not thinking about it. Do you realize how much you are putting introverts on the spot by behaving in the way you behave? Because if I say, and you, what do you think? And for example, if you're super introverted, this might not be so nice to be put on the spot like this. So what she did to take this feedback to the next level is to make it concrete and make it physical. So these 4 robots are also introverted. These are furry robots that are programmed to be, well, to metaphorically represent how does it feel to be introverted. How? They react to light. Light being a metaphor of social interaction. So they have this sort of attraction / repulsion to light. They follow it up to a certain threshold. In the same way, an introvert person is not shy, so an introvert person is not a loner. An introvert person actually might enjoy being around people, only there are thresholds. And like every good introvert, those robots at some point, they have enough. They say, okay, I'm so done with this. And they begin at some point to run away from the light. Of course, I fell in love, not only because the robots are absolutely cute, but I like the idea. And I said, okay, we need to bring it to a public space. And 1 year ago, we were invited by a really, really cool cultural center in Sicily with a bunch of students and the robots to field test them with a class of children of a really small town near Agrigento.
Is Ferrara cultural park?
Yes, yes. Oh, cool. Oh, sono in Italia, è vero, queste cose sì. Bello, ok. When I say this abroad, I like, okay, this is the map of Italy, this is Sicily, this is Agrigento, this is Ferrara, but very good. By the way, go to Ferrara, it's a fantastic city, promo, and they're also cool people. Anyhow, we went to that cultural center, we tested the robots with kids, both inside the center itself and also in public areas. We ran a bunch of tests and qualitative interviews afterward. The idea is that we don't have a full data analysis yet because the PhD student that was working on that got a way better job somewhere else, but did that. But still, we do have preliminary results that this kind of playfulness in public space actually brings people to conceptualize at least introversion in a different way. Also, between parentheses, try taking a plane with a suitcase full of robots, and that is also another experience. Final example from this series. I'm not the author of this, unfortunately, although I love it dearly. And this is something that I show because I really like to underline how something like this can be done quite literally with cardboard. This is TweenBot, TWEENBOT. It is a bot that does really one thing. It goes straight on. Nothing more, nothing less than going slowly straight on. What you don't see here, because I stupidly cropped the image, is that on the top it has a little flag with a kind request, with a mission. In that case, it said, I really, really would like to cross the road. Okay? And it's set free near a really trafficked intersection. I think this one was in Boston, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, Twimbot 1 to 10 are crashed under buses or cars or whatever. And after a while, people begin to take pity of Twimbot number 11, 12, or 13, or whatever, and begin to actually stop the traffic to make the Twimbot cross the road. Again, is this a game? No, not yet. Technically, it's not a game. Is this connected to a city? Absolutely, yes. Is this legal? I'm not really sure, but it's been done. I really don't quote me on this. If you do anything like this in the future, I don't know you. But still, I think this is an example of how an artificial agent can evoke a strong emotional reaction. So the idea is that the design principle of using artificial agents is playing with the feeling of magic, with the feeling of wonder that we see when something unexpected become alive. In the same way, I mean, that's the same feeling of WTF when you see a robotic hitchhiker on the side of the road that asks you to be taken east or west and taken out for drinks. Last but not least, defamiliarization. Defamiliarization comes from theater study, comes from literary theory, and so on and so forth. It's one of those exercises that you do when you learn how to look at stuff from a perspective that is not your usual. It's an exercise on making strange something that you are supposed to know well. The best example here, and the video is not helping, okay? The best example here is actually Italian. But it's Italian, but it's from quite a few years ago. How many of the people here know about WHAI? W-H-A-I, W-H-A-I. Oh ragazzi, siamo pure in Italia. Questi sono di Treviso. Ok, WHAI was, I don't think it's active anymore, unfortunately, but was a non-linear travel guide that was published, I think, by La Terza, but I might be wrong. But I think if you Google, you still find it. The developer were Log607, Log607. WHAI is actually an interactive story that was, I don't think it works anymore, played with a non-smartphone, as in something that sent text messages, like an old Nokia, and with that booklet. The booklet is linked to specific cities. For example, I played it several times in Florence and in Venice. I know it's also been made for Rome and Milan, but I haven't played it. And I think they also made it for New York when they were trying to scale up and pivot. The idea is that you go to a specific location in the city, and then you send a text message to a special number with a code that was printed on the last page of the booklet. And you say, OK, I'm ready to play. My code is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the system say, OK, welcome, player 47. Your code is 25A, 47B, 91C. And then you flip the pages, you combine it, you begin reading, and you begin reading a story. In the case of I don't remember if Florence was one with aliens or one with bank robbers, but still, you get an interactive story that carries you around the city center. It asks you to observe specific point of interest. You need to solve puzzles that are usually number-based. I remember being asked to count how many windows were on the east side of a specific building in Florence. And by answering and by inputting this thing on the text message, you would proceed in the story. And then it was more complicated than this because you could also play two teams, one versus the other. It was awesome. Look it up. Still, this is clearly a game, and this is clearly situated in a specific location, and this clearly defamiliarizes the experience of being a tourist in Florence. because you are not a tourist anymore, you are chasing aliens, or you are chasing a bank robbers, or whatever. This was, I think, brilliant and way before its time, and it was Italian. So that was a little moment of pride, of local pride. This is something that Mauro Salvador, somewhere in the back row, in the other room. Well, okay, he cannot be embarrassed by me explaining the game wrongly. This is something that Mauro, I, and other people created with a European grant. The challenge was make something that was supposed to be played at the same time in 3 cities in the EU. This was played in Bologna, Barcelona, and London at the same time. The game mechanic was super simple and absolutely low-tech. The idea is that we were asking people to do this really low-fi, low-tech Photoshop montage by taking a picture that you were given, go somewhere in the city center and make a picture-in-picture kind of thing of that way, and taking a picture like this. And then that composite picture was sent to another city, so from Bologna to Barcelona, from Barcelona to London, from London to Bologna, and the idea is to see how many times we could make the round, making this really sort of really complicated kaleidoscope effect. The idea is that by doing this, you can look for similarities. So there were people taking pictures of the very first bike sharing racks to show that they were actually the same in Bologna and in London, for example. They're the same colors. You can be ironic, you can juxtapose things that really don't fit, and so on and so forth. Again, a way of looking at things with different eyes. And this has been replicated in Norway and in other places. We didn't get any money out of that. This is an interactive story, but since I'm kind of running late, I'm gonna skip it. Let's just say that this is a WhatsApp kind of story, and somebody much better than me is gonna talk about something similar. We were imagining somebody writing you text messages from the future to motivate you to go around Amsterdam to look for mysterious clues. And we were using that as a data collection tool for university research. More about that over drinks when we have time. And I think I'm also going to skip this, but if you want to, this was something that was made by some friend of mine in Belgium. What I find it really cute, one second, yeah, where is it? Stop it, now, okay. They put those little sparrows in various places, in Ghent and in Hasselt in Belgium. And those sparrows react to whistling, to the thing that you do when your dog runs away or when you want to call somebody far away. And the idea is that it was something to foster different type of community building and community making by asking people to whistle certain things, or whistle in a certain rhythm, or whistle only in specific times, and so on and so forth. I think this game, this project could have used a better game designer, so hint, hint, if you want to make something in this direction, I think that better rules are needed. But I find really, really cute and charming the idea of whistle-based interactions. And we can talk more about that over drinks. Anyhow, the idea is that I like defamiliarization as a design principle because it creates a space of possibilities. It takes something that is not playful and it makes it playful in a way that is way more conscious than the stupid gamification that sometimes people do. As in, it's not like it doesn't become a game because I give you points. It becomes a game because I make something completely unexpected, such as a robot that reacts to whistling. I also have a fourth one that I'm not going to do now because we are running a bit late. Just this is still in beta. We are working on this in Amsterdam right now. As it is, we don't even have an interface yet, but we think about that as an interactive theater piece that is supposed to make you think about how does it feel to live with a smart grid. But probably in 1 year I will be able to tell a bit more. And there are also other architects, colleague of mine, that do something similar with board games that bring people together to discuss issues about a specific neighbors. But again, more about that over drinks. So we talk about these 3 design principles. Again, these are 3 among many. These are just 3 that I like. These are not the one that this is not an exhaustive list. I really think that what we saw today is that play can be civic in the sense that it brings together the people living in a city in ways that are unexpected. We also saw that play can be used to gather data, which sounds creepy if you're Google, and of course we need to be very mindful of what kind of data do we collect and how and from who. But if you are a university researcher, or if you're a public official, or if you are some kind of ethical corporation, you might use pervasive play to gather certain type of data. Of course, as a caveat, don't be evil. And also play can be imagination that is situated. Situated as in specifically connected to that specific sidewalk where I put a strange robot. Finally, before Andrea shoots me, but I still have a couple of minutes. No, sorry, I see the timekeepers. Come and visit us. As I said, I work in Amsterdam. I coordinate a master program called, with very little imagination, digital design. If you have students that are finishing a bachelor and want to do a 1-year intensive trajectory, come shoot me an email. I'm also part of a research group. In the Netherlands, they're called lectoraten, but it's a research group called Play and Civic Media, playandcivicmedia.com. And interestingly, we are organizing an intensive workshop the 3rd and the 4th of October, where we take over quite literally a garage in the periphery of Amsterdam. We use the garage as a sort of home base for 2 days, and we all together we teach and we experiment on how to create weird games for public spaces. And a lot of what I just told, a lot of the examples come from an open access book that some colleague of mine, unfortunately not me, I wish I was responsible for that book, but these are cool people that share the office with me. If you go to responsiveurbanspaces.amsterdam, there is a free PDF. It's a giant 400 pages PDF with a gazillion of examples and best practices on how to make things that are similar to the one that I talked about for the last 50 minutes or so. And that is my email, g.ferri@hva.nl. With this, I am done, and I think we still have a couple of minutes for some questions. Thanks. Anche in italiano. In italiano e in inglese. Come facciamo?
Ci sono domande?
Sì.
Forse abbiamo anche un microfono di quelli volanti, o come si chiamano, non lo so.
Vola.
Cioè, che si muovono. C'è qualche domanda?
Domande, curiosità, critiche? Whatever you prefer. It's up to you.
Guarda Gabriele, intanto grazie per questa oretta, è stata veramente interessante. Sai quello di cui, cioè, la prima domanda in questi casi, cioè, sono tantissime belle iniziative, poi se parliamo diciamo di spazi urban playable, penso che in qualche modo il problema, almeno in Italia, non so, magari Amsterdam meno, sarebbe chi li finanzia e chi li foraggia, ecco, quindi immagino che avrai un po' di testimonianze o esperienze da questo punto di vista, cioè diversi feedback che si possono avere in Italia o fuori.
Allora, dove prendi i soldi per fare cose di questo tipo? Ottima domanda. Io ho visto, nella mia esperienza ci sono 2 o 3 possibilità. La prima, alcune delle cose che ho mostrato sono fatte veramente senza budget e sono fatte come esperimento. Per cui, vabbè, però insomma fa un po' tristezza dire che queste cose sono fatte senza budget. Una buona parte delle cose che hai visto sono finanziate con bandi pubblici, in alcuni casi olandesi, in alcuni casi europei. Scherzi a parte, io ho visto che molte istituzioni pubbliche, almeno a livello europeo e olandese, non so in Italia, spero anche in Italia, sono sensibili a discorsi del tipo io non ti chiedo soldi per fare un gioco, io ti chiedo soldi perché ho un progetto di riqualificazione dal basso di un quartiere, eccetera, 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 per cui ti propongo un processo partecipativo che dura tot, in cui garantisco di coinvolgere tot giovani del quartiere e come obiettivo finale io ho questo gioco. Questo effettivamente funziona. Poi c'è una sfiga, la sfiga è che una volta che tu hai fatto il gioco, quelli tendono a essere fatti una volta e scomparire, quindi ci vorrebbe un database, ci vorrebbe una sorta di archivio di queste cose, però i soldi per quello si trovano. Altri, pochi, effettivamente vengono fatti per un ritorno economico. Per esempio il Log 607 ha vissuto per qualche anno di YY e poi ha fatto pivot e adesso fanno tutt'altro, però di fatto insomma c'è stata la possibilità di effettivamente avere un business su cose di questo tipo e probabilmente appunto si tratta di puntare prima sul contenuto e poi sul formato del gioco, non il contrario. Perlomeno questa è la mia prospettiva.
Qualche altra domanda? Considerate comunque che i relatori sono anche qui, cioè rimangono qui e quindi potete anche stalkerarli dopo
Sono molto sensibile a caffè offerti, birre offerte, dopo mi dovete picchiare in testa per farmi smettere di parlare. Ok.
Bene. Allora ringrazio Gabriele
Grazie.
Ferri.